Hello, my name is Matt. Welcome to Unbearable 73. This should be a short video. I'm just going to go over, this is episode 0 from my episode by episode discussion of the lore Deviance of Rings of Power versus the actual Tolkien Legendarium. I'm making this video so I don't have to explain how I think of the canon levels in the Legendarium every single time I analyze an episode for lore Deviance, so to speak. So first, let's just go over what the canon levels, the way I think of them. This is the official, it's the way I think of them. If you look on the screen, you'll see Tolkien canon levels, it's the way I ordered in my head. Now, we need to note that Christopher, from a young age, he worked by his father's side. He was his primary editor, and he was a primary lore master for his father, organizing the notes and everything. And there are, in fact, some things in Legendarium, like some of the maps that Christopher created, for example. During his lifetime, the two primary works that Tolkien published in the Legendarium, purposes of canon, are The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. He intended to publish Silmarillion as a companion to The Lord of the Rings, but he never completed editing or writing it during his own lifetime. Christopher Tolkien, with the aid of Guy Gary Kay, completed the Silmarillion and published about 3 years after his father's death. Eventually, Christopher released more and more of the material, such as the Unfinished Tales, the History of Middle-earth, and other volumes. So for simple purposes, here's how I identify primary versus secondary canon and so on. Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit outranked the Silmarillion, even though Tolkien revised the materials in the Silmarillion after the publication of Lord of the Rings. What this means that there are things in the Silmarillion which conflict with The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings. Since it was not published during Tolkien's lifetime, I take what's in The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings as primary canon over that. Since Tolkien intended to publish Silmarillion, that outranks the other versions of the material in my logic. And after that, I generally take the Unfinished Tales over all the other material. Though it should be noted that in the Unfinished Tales, there are multiple versions of some of the stories that are included in it. Now, the second thing to go over here is what Amazoff does and doesn't have. Okay. The next thing to consider when talking about Rings of Prime is what they have. Now, we only have media and third-party reports of the actual agreement, but to keep it short, Amazon obtained the rights to make a TV show that has at least 8 episodes per season based on based on the materials in the appendices to Lord of the Rings. So that begs the question, what's in the appendices of Lord of the Rings? There are 6 appendices enumerated as A through F. Appendix A is called the Annals of the Kings and Rulers, and it's composed of 3 subsections, enumerated by Roman numerals thereafter. It's basically an outlining format, so I'm not going to keep, Tolkien was very ordered. The first section is the Númenórean kings. It begins with the construction and mention of the Silmarils and the 2 trees, and the relationship thereof, Morgoth's actions, and Fëanor's response in leading the elves back to Middle-earth. This leads to the alliance with the Edain, who are the men who were hell friends, and then how that leads to Númenor and its line of kings. Eventually, of course, it mentions the fall of Númenor and the rise of Arnor and Gondor, the stewards, and so on. It also includes details of Aragorn and Arwen's life together in the Fourth Age. The second section of the Númenórean king the Annals of the Kings and Rulers is about the House of Eorl, who eventually become the rulers of Rohan. It provides a general history of Rohan and the House of Eorl, and the relationship of the men who became the Eorlings to the Dunedain and all. Though it should be pointed out that the section in the Unfinished Tales is much more in depth, it's just secondary to this. The third section is called Durin's Folk. It's basically history of the dwarves with a primary concentration on Durin's Folk, who are the dwarves that built Khazad-dûm and their descendants. There were basically 7 dwarven tribes, if you don't think about that, based on the dwarf fathers who Aiule created and then Eru gave the souls to. This is also where it states that Gimli and Legolas were such close friends that Legolas took Gimli with him when he left for the Undying Lands after Aragorn and Arwen's death, and he was able to go on a straight path. The Valar let Gimli go, basically. Okay. Appendix B is the Tale of Years. This begins with mentioning the First Age ended when the host of the Valinor defeated Morgoth and most of the Noldor returned to Valinor, with many of the Sindar beginning to travel there as well. After that, basically gives timelines and some details for the Second Age. The Third Age, it also reveals the year enumeration of the Shire Reckoning and how that relates to the time of the Third Age, and provides some details about the later lives of the members of the Fellowship. Appendix C is called Family Trees. It contains the family trees of the hobbits in the story. Appendix D is the calendars. This primarily relates to how the Shire Reckoning works, which is derived from the Númenórean calendar and so on. This is important because in Tolkien's gimmick, the events of The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Silmarillion, and all that are all written down by Bilbo, Frodo, Sam, Merry, Pippin, and some of Sam's descendants. Appendix E is called Writing and Spelling. Part 1 is the pronunciation of words' names. For example, this is why we Tolkien fans know that Elven names that start with a C sound like they start with a K. Part 2 is called Writing. It basically goes over the basic alphabets of elves and men. Appendix F is called Languages and Peoples of the Third Age. There's actually some history in here as well, but the content's fairly self-explanatory. I made this episode 0 because I think the 5 to 10 minutes, closer to 5 minutes, that this information takes to pass would be a drag on any episode. I don't want to keep repeating it and boring people. I hope this is helpful to you. So if you watch one of my lore comparison videos with the episode of the show, and you wonder what my logic and maybe saying like why I chose a particular event being canon versus another version of it in another small story, now you know. Comment down below if you have any questions for me or about this video. Please share your thoughts. Share this video if you enjoyed it. Like if you like, dislike if you dislike. Subscribe if you want to hear more from me. My name is Matt. This has been Unbearable 73. Have a nice day, and I am out of here.